A massive Steelers trade is imminent as we have a massive new report that just dropped today surrounding one wide receiver that not only has Steelers fans fired up, but changes everything as it pertains to the trade deadline as it approaches closer and closer. But not only that, folks, we have multiple other huge injury updates, including one surrounding a couple of key players that are very important. Ton to go over in this episode, as well as some comments from Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin that has fans fired up. But before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage or aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Steelers content. Thank you guys for your continued support. You guys have been absolute beasts, folks. Ton to go over today, and let's dive right into it. As we know, the trade deadline is very, very close, and the Steelers are still actively involved in making another trade, especially following what was a very interesting day yesterday for the team acquiring Kyle Dugger. But a brand new report has dropped revealing, you can see here, I am hearing a lot of the same chatter about the Steelers and wide receivers per Dan Graziano, and which wide receiver should the Steelers go for. So at this point, today, things have really started to pick up. Jordan Schultz, obviously, and now him, this new reporter, Dan Graziano of ESPN, and multiple other reporters, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, have all said, hey, the Steelers are going for a wide receiver, and they are going to make another trade. It's just a matter of who. And initially started with, of course, the signing, rather, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, which we'll dive into a little bit later. Hasn't been confirmed yet. But all this to say, the new articles and new reports have dropped surrounding Rashid Shaheed. So earlier on, you can see here, Steelers-Saints trade for star could make sense at the deadline. And this goes to say that Rashid Shaheed makes a ton of sense. Given Rashid Shaheed's presumed price point, only teams that legitimately believe they can make a postseason run are likely to make an offer, and that list doesn't include the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, though, could use a field-stretching wideout. They've been making calls about receivers, according to Rossini, who's another reporter. There's another reporter saying that they're interested in Rashid Shaheed, and we know they obviously have Calvin Austin. They have DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is really good. They want a WR2 to pair with DK Metcalf, who's not named Calvin Austin. But folks, Rashid Shaheed has started to pick up, especially given the fact that it appears that the Saints want to work to re-sign the younger and more accomplished Chris Olave, leaving Shaheed as an obvious candidate to join a Steelers team that needs someone to pair with DK Metcalf. Pittsburgh already traded George Pickens, acquired Metcalf, and of course added Aaron Rodgers, and traded for Kyle Dugger. All these guys, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey. This would be yet another high-stakes move for a veteran. And folks, it's starting to get real now surrounding Rashid Shaheed, because not only is there a ton of reports that have started to drop around, of course, the Steelers getting a wide receiver, not just this report, tons, right? But Rashid Shaheed has always made the most sense to me. Now, Jacoby Myers is a close 1B. I'll have another video on him coming out probably tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, or tomorrow evening, depending on what happens, because of the fact that a lot of analysts are predicting Jacoby Myers to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers at this juncture, and that obviously makes a ton of sense as well. But I think for this team in particular, Rashid Shaheed would be a low acquisition cost, someone who can actually run really, really fast and be a perfect complementing piece to DK Metcalf. Now, another article dropped by Bleacher Report predicting the Saints trade for wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, the Saints trade, Rashid Shaheed to the Steelers, rather. Why it could happen. It appears the Saints want to work to re-sign the younger, more accomplished Olave. Why it's bold. Pittsburgh already traded George Pickens. Again, another high stakes move for the veteran. And the prediction is Pittsburgh gives the Saints a 6th-round pick for a guy with an expiring contract who isn't a big part of their future. Shaheed outperforms Calvin Austin, but doesn't make a huge impact overall. And this is where I want to ask you guys your thoughts, because we're going to dive into some of the injuries and things like that. Where do you see Rashid Shaheed fitting into this team? Because you look at his stats, and you can see here, right? Has had some decent years. Has never touched 1,000 yards. Was obviously a Pro Bowler back in 2023. He is older than Chris Olave, despite what some people think. Obviously, Chris Olave is the guy who's more accomplished, has had some 1,000-yard seasons, things like that. But he's speedy, man, and he is already up to 431 yards on the year. So, targeting and rather is projected, if he stays in the same pace, and I'm sure he gets some more, run with Aaron Rodgers, projected to reach over 800 yards, his career high. And that's with a horrible quarterback, right? In New Orleans. If you bring him over to Aaron Rodgers, yes, he doesn't throw the ball to one specific person a lot. DK Metcalf doesn't get a lot of targets. He spreads them around. He gets everybody involved. This could be his deep ball threat, the Aaron Rodgers that is, that changes the outlook of this team. And I truly believe that it makes a ton of sense. And again, given the price point, you can see here, like I mentioned earlier, the Steelers are making calls on receivers. And if you can get him for a 6th-round pick now, it might cost a little bit more. I would even do it for like a 4th-round pick, but a 6th-round pick is a no-brainer. It gives them a perfectly pairing, wide receiver next to DK Metcalf. It is an expiring contract. If he does well, you can, of course, always be willing to make another signing and sign him. The Steelers aren't afraid to pay money for players and people they think are stars. I mean, they just acquired, Kyle Duggar, who initially we thought was, they were taking the whole contract, but it's actually the Patriots that are taking the majority of the contract. But I mean, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, there's countless instances. They just extended TJ Watt, massive contract. They're willing to pay guys. If you bring him in, Rashid Shaheed, a great wide receiver that can run. He is super speedy, right? He is not necessarily the true route runner that a guy like Jakobi Meyers is, who gives you a better look, in my opinion. Like, I think Jakobi Meyers is the better fit, but he's going to cost a lot more. And that's what this all comes down to. So let me know down below, do you want to see them add Jakobi Meyers, or would you rather see them add a guy like, in this instance, Rashid Shaheed? Rashid Shaheed makes a ton of sense. I do think it's going to happen. And the more reports that come out, the more clear it is. The Steelers are going all in at this deadline, which a little bit scary, a little bit, maybe less scary, but regardless, let me know down below what your thoughts are. And let's transition to a few injury updates. And let's start with, a few guys here. So Scotty Miller, his finger, Pat Freiermuth, Isaac Seumalo, and Zach Frazier all did not practice today. And then, of course, you have a couple other guys being limited and Cody Trice being a full participant. This is interesting. So Pat Freiermuth is obviously, he went down with a little bit of an injury in the last game. He returned to the game, though, and it's a quad bruise. So a little bit concerning. Hopefully he's good to go. Every single game matters so much at this point. You're going up against such a good team in the Indianapolis Colts, which is crazy to say, but they're a great team this year. You need to go out and play good defense, or their offense will tear you apart. And that's the sad part about it here. If this team doesn't step up defensively, whether that be TJ Watt, whether that be, Kyle Duggar, some of the new guys they've acquired, you obviously need Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay to step up. They had a brutal, Jalen Ramsey played okay last week, but Darius Slay hasn't been playing well at all. There's a lot of speculation about him getting traded, all these different things. What's important is a move is going to be coming one way or another here, and getting this win against the Colts the week before the trade deadline, the last game before the trade deadline rather, is going to be crucial. And hopefully Pat Freiermuth is good to go. But other than that, no major injuries there. And quickly on the Marquez Valdes-Scantling signing, Aaron Rodgers said, I love MVS. I think MVS wants to be on the active roster. So if there wasn't an opportunity here for that, then I guess he's waiting for something else. And there was reports that he's going to sign in a week or two, I think, depending on what the Steelers do. Because if the Steelers go out and they acquire a guy like Rashid Shaheed, and they acquire somebody like him, maybe they think the need then for Marquez Valdes-Scantling is lower. A lot of it will depend, of course, on how they view their depth chart with the wide receiver core, whether they think Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson can be the WR3. Jumping down from the WR2 is up in the air, but it's going to be interesting, and I'm super excited to see what they can do this weekend. Yes, there's a lot of doom and gloom in Steelers land because of how last week went and things like that. At the end of the day, the Packers are a good team. The Steelers defense has been generationally bad for how much money they're paying people, but with Deshaun Elliott out, you acquire Kyle Duggar. Hopefully gives the team a little bit of a rejuvenation, and hopefully the field at the stadium can be a little bit better, but it was, according to Aaron Rodgers, slightly in better shape than previous weeks. Asking him if there was concern about the condition this week, and upon hearing Pitt was at Stanford, the Cal grad said they're playing those guys. Come on, Pitt, let's get it done this week. So obviously, stadium has been a bit of a problem, but let me know down below what your thoughts are on all of this, folks. Things continue to pick up, and we're going to keep you up to date every step of the way. A ton of videos coming. Cheers.